series, but the third round of the 2020 Zamp Helmet Sports 1000 Championship is about to get underway at Silverstone. The lights go out. Richard Morris from the back, watch for him. There's a couple that aren't going anywhere. They were Stephen Dean and Phil Hutchins. But as they come into Abbey for the first time, it's from pole position Ryan Yarrow that leads James Walker. Poor start, I think, from Joe Locke. He's dropped further back. There he is in number 8. So he's lost some positions too. So there's a couple of quick drivers that'll be working their way through the order during this race. Into Village they go though, but it is the pole man and the round 2 winner, Ryan Yarrow, that leads the way. He's only really got the odd podium before this season, but he's, I'd imagine, might be able to pull away from James Walker in one of the slightly older Spires. But watch out for Richard Morris right in the middle. He'll be coming through the pack.
Yeah, here he comes, popping his way out of the slipstream of the pack, the silver car with the red marking. 72, that's McGill, isn't it, coming up as well out of the line. And there's the 67 in there too, which is Victor Newman. That's the French blue car, quite appropriately, the blue Mattel, as opposed to most of them which have been red in the past.
Yeah, both blue this year. In fact, Michael Roots there in the middle, also in a blue car for the 2 Works Mattels. Don't think, we haven't got the privately run cars here this weekend. Top 2 going away then. That is Ryan Yarrow and James Walker. In 3rd position is Cole Austin, I think. Yes, it is. Cole Austin from 8th on the grid to 3rd. A great first lap from him. Then Victor Newman in 4th. 5th is Jonathan McGill. 6th is Joe Locke. So he hasn't made much more progress from a slow start. Then Michael Roots 7th and Richard Morris in 8th position. Lock up there. That is from Roots in the 2nd of the Mattels. He's already been passed by Morris. So he's down to 8th position now, is Michael Roots. And here come the 2 Spires there, Locke and Morris. They're up the inside of Jonathan McGill. So that's put some 5th and 6th positions down. There's a spinner at the back. That's Tom Johnston, I think, in one of the Spires. There he is, 87.
There he goes, yes. McGill rather left the door open there, didn't he, for 2 of them to come past him. And another's going past as well, which is one of the Mattels having a look. In fact, ducking back in. That's the number 5 car, which is Michael Roots.
And Newman's gone around in 67 at Stowe Corner. He was trying to get Cole Austin there. That didn't work, so he's spun to the back. So a few issues here at the beginning of this race. And Richard Morris, I think, might have pounced and passed most of them because it's ahead of Joe Locke as well now. So I think Cole Austin will be 3rd, but Richard Morris in 4th. Let's check that across the line. No. So I think Austin must have got caught out as well. He hasn't come through, has he? So
doesn't appear to them. They're black and red car missing.
So perhaps him and Newman both spun then in that instant at Stowe.
That's interesting because Richard Morris from the back of the grid in the number 2 car is absolutely on it. He's only 6 seconds away from the lead, effectively.
At Snetterton, he had a spin and came back to win the first round of the championship too. So it's not all over for him yet.
Spin it and win it.
Absolutely. Joe Locke there in 4th position, moving over from bike sports this season. He was going to do Club Enduro, but changes over the lockdown period, and now he's out in one of the Tim Gray Motorsport Spires. Here's Michael Roots coming up the inside of Jonathan McGill and goes through. So that's P5. Is he going to get there though? Because McGill fighting back on the outside. Yes, he has done it eventually. Michael Roots is an ex-low-cost racer. Did a few races in low-cost and now moving over to the Mattel team. But McGill is fighting back and goes back down the inside. So Jonathan McGill doing well there to get back ahead of the Mattel.
He's in the sort of Vitaphone coloured car, isn't he? A tribute to those Maseratis that Michael Bartels raced in the big GT races. But yes, he did well there. It's like he's come alive suddenly. Had a couple of laps just playing himself in, and now is up into 5th ahead of Colin Chapman, who's been one of the stalwarts of this series in its different guises.
Yes, because he's now in a Spire, isn't he? Had what was it he raced previously?
He had a BDN at one point, didn't he?
And then Neil Gardiner bought it, and the car burnt down in its first race with the new owner. So I don't think that BDN there's much left of it anymore. It had a big fire at Brands Hatch a few years ago. Here are the 2 Spires in 3rd and 4th. That's Richard Morris and Joe Locke. Morris going away from Locke now. Then behind, Michael Roots now ahead of McGill. Is McGill going to fight back at Stowe? Get a big toe down there, especially in these windy conditions. And McGill back up the inside, much more experienced in these type of cars, and goes back ahead. McGill, over the years, has been getting quicker and quicker with Tim Gray's coaching. He's now always up there in the top 6.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of opposition to that, was there? It's almost resigned to letting him through. But I think the 2 types of car maybe slightly advantaged at different parts of the circuit. So I think overall their lap times are very, very similar. And look through there, the Mattel quicker through the exit of Club Corner, whereas McGill is more adventurous on the braking with his Spire, and he's going to lose out coming through Abbey. They're absolutely abreast through there. Here's Yarrow having a second bite of the cherry, turning across the link onto the Hangar Straight, and he is slowly shaking off James Walker, and in the background Richard Morris, if anything, just slipping back a few tenths a lap.
Yeah, still around that same gap. James Walker, though, he always goes well here at Silverstone. He was on the podium last season. James Walker, I don't think was at Snetterton, but yes, goes well at this venue. In one of the slightly older Spires, but he's only 1.5 seconds away from the leader, so good effort again from him. There's that battle of a fifth, McGill and Roots. Jonathan McGill back ahead of the Mattel as they turn their way through Stowe Corner, just ahead, as Marcus said, of Colin Chapman, who's been out in the Spire now for a couple of seasons. Looks like Cole Austin didn't come through at all, so in that incident with Victor Newman, we've lost him, which is such a shame because he was going there in third place, way higher than we've ever seen him go before. Victor Newman did get back going, but he's a long way behind the rest, so he's not really going to make any more progress. And we only had 12 starters, so we did, looks like we did lose one, but another one. Just trying to work out who that might have been. We had 13 13 that were due to be on the grid.
Well, McGill has established himself now ahead of number 5, which is Michael Roots. This is the intermark tussle between a Spire driver and a Mattel driver. The other Mattel 67 running down the order, but it's Ryan Yarrow leading by 2.1 seconds now, and edging away from James Walker. The gap back from them to Richard Morris is pretty stable, in fairness. Richard Morris on the back of the grid into third place.
The one car that didn't start was Colin Spicer, who was due to be off the back but did a very slow qualifying lap, so obviously problems this morning unable to be resolved, which means we had these 12 cars take the start. Ryan Yarrow across the line 2.4 seconds ahead of James Walker. Fastest laps are 1:10.36, so they're over a second off the lap record here at Silverstone for these cars. Richard Morris still 6.5 seconds behind, so pretty stable on those ahead. Then Joe Locke and Jonathan McGill complete the top 5. After Snetterton, Morris and Yarrow were equal on points. They were 11 ahead of Joe Locke and Victor Newman in 4th. So Newman running at the back now after that spin. Going to hurt his championship hopes.
So this could, this is going to advantage Yarrow in that for the bragging rights after this round, if he can stay ahead of the pack, because Richard Morris shows no signs of catching James Walker at this point. This is the tussle between the 72 car of Jonathan McGill, the Spire, made up in Derbyshire by Paul Nightingale's team, and the Mattel made in Southampton by the Mattel father and son, Ian and Scott. And say over a lap, very, very little between these types of car.
This is a 20-minute race, by the way, so much like the bike sport, slightly longer than the majority of 750 Motor Club categories racing. And if you're a 750 Motor Club regular, but this being your first one of the season, now we're into full minutes of races, no +1 lap at the end, like we've had in previous seasons. Now they're 15 and 20-minute races rather than 13 and 18 +1 lap.
It's always a bit bizarre, isn't it?
So here is Joe Locke, number 8, as I said earlier, coming from bike sports, so sort of downgraded, so he's got to relearn how to use what was aero on the Radical, and now what's sort of all underbody aero on these cars, Marcus.
Yeah, it's they're really nicely developed, these cars, and they are phenomenally quick for what they are. You know, bear in mind that they only have a 1-litre motorcycle engine in them. And they motor. I mean, fastest lap, you know, in about the, what do you say it was, 110 or something like that?
Yarrow's now done a 110.0, but these cars have done 109s before.
So they're not far away, and conditions are pretty favourable today. Morris with his lights ablaze, just to warn anyone as he comes through. Not that many on the grid to warn, in fairness, but he's just left the lights on now.
He was 6/10 quicker than James Walker on the last lap, and he's less than 4 behind now. So that could be a gap to watch into the second half of the race. There's Victor Newman, who has been lapped now by the leader, Ryan Yarrow. Ryan Yarrow only in the second or third season of racing, and getting quicker all the time. And now leading. He took his first victory last time out at Snetterton, beating Richard Morris. And here, just gently pulling
Newman
away.
again, having another major tank slapper through Stowe Corner.
I guess sort of dropping behind the leader sort of gives him a place to follow, doesn't it? But perhaps just not quite able to carry the speed through. That
Might be a bridge too far just yet, but certainly he can aspire to learn from the race leader.
He was on the podium at Snetterton, was Newman, was 3rd in race 1 and 4th in race 2.
Richard Morris way out wide over the curbs on the exit of Club that time through.
He pulled another half a second back on James Walker now, so it is 3 seconds between them. So with half of the race to go, that is a battle I think that could develop. There is number 2, Richard Morris, the ex-Formula Ford racer, who moved over to these cars last season. Don't think he managed to win a race last year, but was a winner immediately this season. Finished second so many times to Chippy Wesmell, but he showed his class taking victory in a wet-dry race at Donington Park last weekend in British GT.
Yeah, Wesmell was very impressive over the last couple of seasons now with the 750s.
Yeah, I think he's sort of only about half a second off the Works McLaren drivers in British GT, so that's not a bad first effort.
Hugely impressive.
And he'd only, done 2 seasons, I think, in this? Yeah. Got pole position in his first ever qualifying session, which was in the snow at Donington Park, and that didn't actually turn out to be a race. But then his racecraft came on as well, and I think he's here still coaching the Mattel guys and helping them out, which is good to see. 5 seconds now, the gap Yarrow to Walker, and a new fastest lap from Ryan Yarrow. He's in the 9s, but only just, a 109.99.
That counts. That's definitely one you go home thinking, I've broken the barrier.
But Walker again, half a second was caught by Richard Morris. But Morris not lapping as quick as the leader. Only slightly slower, because what was 6 seconds at the beginning is now 7. Here's a battle. This is 34 Stephen Dean and 87 Tom Johnston as they make their way through. See, Dean's got a newer Spire now, the GT3S. He had an older spec car previously, like the one that's chasing him with Tom Johnston there.
Those cars can be updated. You can actually go away and buy a kit, or have it modified by the factory to the later specification.
Stephen Dean did get a pole position in odd circumstances at Croft a couple of seasons ago, but he rather got swamped at the beginning of the race, and I think probably would have been better off in a sort of a normal grid position. But here he is, battling with Tom Johnston. Stephen Dean is 8th in the championship, had a best result of 8th at Snetterton.
Oh, a spin for number 21. That's Phil Hutchins with his Spire.
He was just ahead of them in 8th. I think he might have. Oh, he's just ahead of them still, isn't he, in 8th position?
One to watch. That could be a triumvirate going for that place now, battling for 8th, 9th and 10th places.
Phil Hutchins got a podium last season at Snetterton in soaking wet conditions. Yeah, he's just lost out to them by the end of the straight. Didn't have the momentum to hold them back. And Johnston trying to get 2 places now because he's on the inside of Stephen Dean. Is Dean going to hang on the outside line? I think just about in 34. And Hutchins, is he going to try and get down the inside of the pair of them into the chicane? He locks up though. He might get one.
He got one. That was against the odds, wasn't it? I think it was rather because his adversary, 87 Johnston, decided he better stay out of the way.
So this is battle now for 8th position, being led by Stephen Dean, but Hutchins is fighting back immediately after that spin on the previous lap. But Abbey, it's a bit tight to go down the inside there, and he had to back out of it, and that's dropped him wide over the curb. But he's still there to challenge, and here comes Johnston behind. Can he now try and pick up 1, maybe 2 places at the hairpin when he gets back ahead? Does he, of Hutchins? Hutchins trying to hold on the outside line, which will give him the inside through the kink. Johnston still there in 87, so this has turned into quite a nice battle, Marcus.
Yeah, it's good to see. In fact, if running down the field and you can't run, on the pace of the leaders, it's quite dispiriting sometimes to be running on your own, or worse than that, to actually be falling back little by little from somebody. But when you're involved in a battle, however it emerges, it brings new impetus. You tend to go faster because you're forgetting some of the external influences and just chasing for all you're worth.
Notice the battle for second has got closer, just a second now between James Walker and Richard Morris. I don't know if we might be able to pick up that in a few moments' time, because Richard Morris is rapidly catching James Walker now. And here they are, into Stowe. Up the inside for Morris, and is that going to give him the position? James Walker, I think, will be a rather tougher opponent than what he had earlier in the race.
Yeah, Walker's car is the sort of the Highline version, isn't it? It's a much taller body, larger frontal area, the earlier car, and then Morris's, you can see it's just been pared back very subtly. It's got a longer tail, it's got different aero on the back. It comes around the outside now, touches the grass. That's interesting. These Flymo.
Couldn't get down the inside at Abbey, but I think he'll have a good run here through Farm Corner and down towards the hairpin at Village. Is on the inside line, and he will slot past him this time. Yes, he does. So Richard Morris up into second place. They've again upgraded the bodywork a bit this season. They've called it the GT3 20S. Not sure quite how much difference there is from last year's model. And that's one I guess you have to have a good look over in the pit lane to be able to tell the differences, because Spire have got that car pretty much perfected now after many years of development.
I remember the first Spires coming out, probably 20 odd years ago, and they were fairly ungainly, but very, very quickly. Paul Nightingale, who was an XF4 racer, had a Delta, got them together and started to modify them away from that road-going bike spec, as they were called, RGB back then.
It was a very different championship then, wasn't it? Mainly front engine cars then. Now we've got no front engine cars out this weekend.
Yeah, funnily enough, Spire have built a couple of 7s, haven't they, which go very well with the CSCC Magnificent 7 series. And John Cutmore won one of those races recently at Thruxton by dint of an exceedingly well-timed pit stop.
But we did have them out in the invitation class Donington last year, I think. They start at the back, but they've got bigger engines, haven't they, than these 1 litre cars. But yeah, so good to see sort of Spire developing, because at one point Paul Nightingale was going to retire, wasn't he? But that seemed to never happen.
Yes, he's been retiring for the last sort of 5 years, hasn't he? But hasn't quite managed to do it.
Here's that battle between Dean and Hutchins, because Tom Johnston's passed them both now, so he was at the back a little while ago. Now he's into 8th and just getting away from them. Yeah,
he's kind of got second wind, hasn't he, after that early spin coming out of the link onto the hangar straight.
He's really got a nice gap now. They cross the line to complete 14 laps. And here comes Hutchins down the inside into Abbey. No, he couldn't do that, had to back out. Not really an overtaking place, or in any car I wouldn't really suggest, particularly in these quick cars. They will be lapped soon by Ryan Yarrow too. So Yarrow want to get past safely when he gets there. There's going to be 2 more laps. Actually, it'll be a 17-lap race, which will be pretty much bang on 20 minutes. So, will he get... Oh, Hutchins out over the grass. That didn't help his momentum down the hangar straight.
It's a lot less bother than a hover, as they used to say.
There's Yarrow right behind, so he's going to lap them, isn't he? So he just want to do that safely.
Yeah, Yarrow's got 3 to worry about. In the background is Morris. He's 6.5 seconds-ish behind. So unless something goes very badly wrong with Yarrow, he'll claim his second win of this 2020 campaign. And he looks up the inside of 21, which is Hutchins at the end of the Vale. Turns sharply to the left, now starts to open out, gives it a bit of a boot, and then builds the momentum all through this long double apex right-hander at Club, which was part of the original Grand Prix circuit here, going back to when I remember watching Jim Clark race here in '67.
It's evolved a rather lot over the years, hasn't it, Silverstone circuit?
Unrecognisable, I think.
Still amazing how big the runoff areas are, and Formula 1 cars you can still hit them at quite a rate, can't they? Which I think a club racing car would have rather more effort to get there. Such is the speed differential now of the top line race cars. But out of the link, there comes Ryan Yarrow, so he's on for the second win of the season, which is good for him, but a good recovery from Richard Morris. He shall be disappointed for whatever reason that was. He had to start from the back. Hopefully we'll hear from him with Matt in a few moments, and we shall be able to find that out. And we'll try again at the end of the day to have the Yarrow and Morris battle that is promised over the course of this season.
Yes, I think if Morris starts a little closer to the front next time would be helpful, wouldn't it? But we don't know why he didn't this time.
They stayed at that 6 seconds ever since that at the end of the first or second lap, whenever it was. But across the line, there goes Ryan Yarrow. He is the winner for the second time this season. And there's Richard Morris in P2. I think that gap came down a bit because of the traffic. James Walker, first as the sort of privateers there in third position. Great drive from him, a long way, or a decent way ahead there of Joe Locke, who was in fourth position. And then I think there was quite a big gap to the rest. So that came down a bit, didn't it? Michael Roots, he was further down than that, I think, earlier to Joe Locke. But that's because that wasn't Roots, was it? It was the Pat Marker Newman.
That was Newman.
And
there's Roots crossing the line. Following him is the black car of McGill, 72.
Right down here with our second place man, Richard Morris. Richard, great race there for you. You were carving your way through once again and just managed to pip second place towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was tough starting from the back. Got a little penalty after qualifying, which I'm not sure I'm terribly happy about, but nevertheless, starting where we started, obviously all I could do was try and carve through as quickly as I can. There was lots going on the first couple of laps, managed to get third, as you say, and then chasing down James Walker, who's doing a cracking job. Took me a while to catch him. Fantastic few corners side by side with him, really loved that battle. And then just obviously starting where we started, too big a gap to Ryan. But second place, from where I started, you really can't complain.
And it was important for you to get those places because you and Ryan came here this weekend joint on points.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's helped Ryan out a little bit in the championship, but there's still races left, and we'll see what we can do from here, starting from the next race this afternoon.
You're going to go guns blazing?
We'll see what I can do.
Brilliant stuff. Cheers, Richard.
Cheers.
There we go then, Richard Morris down here, who finished in second place. Let's bring in our third place man next up, James Walker. James, congratulations. You tried to have second for as much as you can through that race, but as we just said, Richard pipped you towards the end.
No, Richard was just too quick for me, but I was trying to hold on to Ryan at the front there. But third place I'm very pleased with. It's only actually the second meeting that I've had a podium in my entire career. So I've had class wins before, but out at the front, it's not. I'm not used to it. So I'm actually very pleased. But it was hard to keep Richard behind me. So beat me fair and square.
Is this your first time out this year?
It is, yeah. So very pleased to be here.
Not a bad circuit at all. You've got some places to stretch your legs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. And having been watching the Formula One, I thought, no, I've got to get out there and do that myself.
Brilliant stuff. Well done, James.
Thank you very much.
There we go. James Walker, who finished in third place. Let's see if we can get our race winner, who's just been weighed. I think he might have disappeared actually because we can't see him around yet. So I think he's gone elsewhere, unfortunately. So our race winner has parked himself out the back, so we can't hear from Ryan, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get a chat with him a little bit later on. But there you go, some great racing as ever from the Sports 1000s, and we'll have more a little bit later on this afternoon here at Silverstone.